Okay, now that you have a richer conception of what Kierkegaard's view is, I want to return to this question that we talked about at the very beginning, why Kierkegaard does actually use a pseudonym in this work. What we saw when we looked at the Hegelian philosophy in the previous video is that there's this connection between mediation and the universal and understanding and speech. And the way in which reason and rational thinking are limited to a certain sphere, the sphere in which we can conceptualize our acts as falling under categories, universally intelligible ones. Now, with a little bit of that background, we can understand a few of these Kierkegaardian claims. So he says, no one can grasp faith because, or no one can really understand Abraham because faith begins where thinking leaves off. So this is interesting because in some ways we can't have a rational justification for faith. We can't have a rational understanding of faith because as soon as we're just trying to use thinking, our everyday words and concepts, those universals, then we're going to necessarily constrain faith in ways that Kierkegaard thinks are unacceptable. That's going to leave us with some hollowed out, Hegelian Christianity, something that falls short of actually being what's retaining what's valuable about Christianity itself. So in some ways, thinking must transcend, faith must transcend thinking. And this relates to the theme of speech. So he says, whenever I speak, I express the universal. And if I don't, then nobody can understand me. So here we have this three-way connection, which I think is exactly the essential issue. Speech, the universal concepts, and mutual understanding each other. And this again relates to Abraham. Abraham cannot be mediated. There we have the other key Hegelian word, which can also be put by saying he cannot speak. The moment I speak, I express the universal. Okay, so here, this then precisely makes us think about the deep meaning behind the pseudonym, because of course the pseudonym relates to this theme of speech, since after all, he's called John of Silence. So there's an amazing way in which Kierkegaard's chosen pseudonym connects so deeply with what he wants to say about philosophy and the limits of speech and the necessity of silence. But at the exact same time, it connects with the sacrificing and murder in the name of another, and murdering sons precisely to bring things to achieve something even better. So it's just amazing. It's unbelievable how this pseudonym connects so deeply with all of these themes of Kierkegaard's work. Now, what I want to do is just give you one more explanation about how this might go. So here's my reading of it, and of course, this is my interpretation. This is me sort of getting some deeper significance out of this. So you can wonder, am I giving the exact right understanding of this or not? But this is what I'll tell you. Here's one way of thinking about it. From the Grimm fairy tale, John of Silence, or faithful John, sacrifices himself for his master. So this is part of his great deed. And he does so by speaking. So that's so wonderful and deeply symbolic. And so what I think is the pseudonym Kierkegaard has invented, that person must be the one who speaks. Because remember, Kierkegaard's whole position is that you can't speak on behalf of Abraham. So if he wrote a philosophical book explaining how it's impossible to explain Abraham, he is necessarily refuting himself by the very act of trying to do it, especially in his own words. So his view is, in a sense, has a kind of depth to it where by philosophical necessity, he just can't convey it to you in straightforward ways, because his whole position is that it can't be conveyed in straightforward ways. So he comes up with this beautiful literary device that's in some ways true to his philosophical position. So, but it has to do with speaking, and in some ways that's an abomination or an atrocity. So I think the pseudonym, so Kierkegaard in his pseudonymous role, I don't even know how to say that. Kierkegaard in the role of his pseudonym does speak, he breaks the silence, and he sacrifices himself for others. So Kierkegaard is, in a sense, taking one for the team, doing things that are deeply problematic, because you can't actually understand faith if you're going to try to speak on behalf of and describe the character of Abraham in a certain way. So that is like him, the pseudonym is self-sacrificial, but it's for a purpose, because hopefully Kierkegaard thinks that there is some good that comes of it. So So we are the beneficiaries of them. We actually come to understand faith by the pseudonym Johannes, describing the ways in which it works, and we come to understand something by reading between the lines that Johannes can't even grasp himself. And the way I read this in the metaphor then is the benefit that comes to the master. So John of Silent, or faithful John dies, but later on the master gets some good from it, namely the master's sons then are the benefits of the sacrifice of John himself. And so that's the benefits of Kierkegaard writing this work, is that we then come to understand him. And that's we, the general audience. And I think it's actually more particularly we, Regina, Kierkegaard's Kierkegaard's ex, who he broke off the engagement with. So there's a beautiful way in which this can function as a testament to one individual person. So really, he has an audience of one, but at the same time, there's something beautiful that we can all comprehend about it too, and come to perhaps have a deeper understanding of religion and faith, according to Kierkegaard. Now, what is the good of that then? The amazing thing is, then what the master does is sacrifice his own sons, and that's to actually come full circle and save faithful John. And so I think what this is then Kierkegaard in his other role as Kierkegaard himself. And this is so who gets saved is, Kierkegaard has risen up, but not as Johannes, who actually can't fully understand faith, but this is sort of what we see as Kierkegaard, the true Kierkegaardian position, him and his other guys, as the individual who does fully understand faith. And it's only by saving Regina, see, in some ways, Kierkegaard's own fundamental commitment, his unconditional commitment, is to his philosophical work. But his philosophical work, if it does no good, it could ring hollow. He has to have this relation to his audience for his philosophy to make sense. And so by saving, in some ways, by Regina being saved, it shows that his work is right. And so by them being saved, by his views working correctly on his audience, that validates the unconditional commitment that Kierkegaard has to his own work, and thereby that's what constitutes, or he has to make that work in order for him to actually have a successful unconditional commitment in this way. And so that's, in some ways, it's like the proof of his view is in these acts of success, and that's what raises Kierkegaard up as a man of faith, or actually validates his faith, or in this metaphorical terms in the Grimm fairy tale, that's what brings back John to life, but not just John as in stage one, but in his other guise. Okay, maybe you think I'm making way too much of three little words, the pseudonym Kierkegaard chose, but I think it's really incredible how deep this pseudonym runs to really understanding his philosophical position. Okay, thanks.